Hello, everyone. Welcome to Courageous Custody, your weekly dose of empowerment and practical guidance. I am Renee Rodriguez, the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
And I'm Atra Tarfa, an IFS trained level 3 practitioner. And Renee and I are here to talk to you at Courageous Custody because we do understand unique challenges protective parents face in the courtroom. And what we do here is we aim to equip you with strategic thinking and emotional support that you need to navigate this difficult journey with strength and with resilience.
So every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to go live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, bringing you inspiration and insight from stories about courageous parents who have walked in your shoes and emerged victorious in big ways and small, and practical strategies from us to help you advocate for your children and manage your trauma as you're going through your custody battle. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Reminder, we are not giving legal advice or therapy.
And if you're feeling triggered, we would like you to take care of yourself. So maybe step away and rejoin us in the comments.
Yes. So this week, first off, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. We are going to continue with our using tech in court. And today we're going to talk about how to use how to use emails as evidence in family court. Emails are, probably one of the chief source of evidence for most of our clients, and they can be very valuable evidence in custody cases, often revealing communication patterns, parenting decisions and agreements or disagreements between parents. And we want to talk today about how to use this piece of tech effectively in court. As always, we want to talk about thinking about, is what I've got admissible? And I think this is an interesting thing because so many of our clients feel like if it's written, then it's admissible. And I think a big part of that is because what we are doing with our moms is we're basically saying, look, get everything in writing, get everything in writing, get everything in writing. But just because everything is in writing, it does not mean that all of that writing is something that can be or should be introduced, right? Because we want to be strategic about what we're doing. So we're really only looking for the stuff that's relevant to the case. I think that many of the people we work with have hundreds upon hundreds of emails showing how much of a jerk their co-parent is, right? But what we're doing is we're looking at stuff that will focus specifically on particular pieces that go towards what you're trying to show the court about your co-parent. And so that's one of the reasons we tell our clients to try to come up with 2, maybe up to 5 categories of concerns, where we're just focusing on these particular things about your abusive ex versus everything about your abusive ex. And so the emails that you're going for have to be relevant to the case, to custody arrangements, to parenting decisions, especially where it's concerning the children and the child's well-being, or any issues that are in dispute, right?
I think I want to just pause real quick. I know we have short episodes, but that's a big deal. Relevance is a big deal because we see our clients come in to talk to Renee and I all the time, and what they think is relevant evidence, most of the time it's not relevant evidence, and that's baffling to a lot of people. But
it's valid, right?
Yeah, it's valid, right? Yeah,
it's all stuff. Look, if everything worked the way that we think it should work, then the courts would be able to look at something and say this person is clearly a problem. Right. This is clearly, there's a reason that this protective parent, after trying for months and years to make things as best she could, finally said that's it. I think I'm able to safely flee now, right? And so they are not really able to see that. And so all of that stuff that shows the problems with the other person, who the other piece we know about it too is, well, they might have been mean to you, but of course they would never be mean to little children. It's kind of like, actually, the vast majority of the time, an abuser is an abuser is an abuser. It doesn't matter whether they're looking at a romantic partner, children, or kittens. They are abusers. Right.
And it's not that the court's not going to see it or doesn't want to see it necessarily. It's because it has to be presented in a way in which the court understands, because the court is not you. So the court's not going to understand you the way that you understand you, right? The court's not going to understand. Yeah, the X, the way that you understand the X. The court understands things in a particular way, and you have to present that evidence and make sure everything's relevant in that particular way so that it can be understood.
That's right.
That's a huge point.
Right. Yeah. And so that they know what they need to follow for the law versus all of the other stuff that doesn't matter to them.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's the metadata is becoming more and more important, and we're working on selecting someone to talk about tech abuse and fake emails, fake text messages, fake WhatsApp messages, fake everything can be created. A lot of people kind of feel like, oh, well, you must be talking about the fact that they're faking that I emailed them, that I sent them something, right? That's only a piece of it. Sometimes they're creating alibis, right? Creating witnesses, fake witnesses over email. And so the metadata is really what it boils down to, which we'll learn in a future episode. They may or may not have come from the purported sender's account, right? So the metadata will show the date and time, but it'll also show a bunch of sender recipient info that's crucial here. It's the kind of thing where if you were looking at it, you'd be all like, oh my gosh, it looks like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. But, forensic tech experts can look at it and say, now, this didn't even come from this computer, and so that's basically what you want there is to make sure that your email is authentic, of course, right? There's also hearsay. A lot of emails can fall under hearsay rules, which is, hey, I want to bring this in and, this clearly shows something. But, the best example I can give for clients who say this is evidence is when they say something like, please don't be 2 hours late for Susie's, recital again. You missed all of her performances because you walked in just as it was ending. Well, here's the problem. If the other party doesn't reply to say, forget it, I can show up whenever I want, or at least I showed up or something, you have no proof. All you've done is started to create a narrative that was never confirmed. That is hearsay, right? And there's other ways that emails can be hearsay. And so if it's just, if it can't even follow, if it falls under hearsay rules, then you may be disappointed in what's being used, right? So make sure that you're getting, it has to be proof of something that actually occurred.
Right.
And, there's also best evidence rules. You want to present original emails, reliable copies. I know we've talked about audio and video recordings, and many of these things, all of the tech pieces we're talking about can easily be copied. A copy is not the original, even if it's exactly like the original. When you're in court, you have to offer the original, and the metadata will show whether or not it is an original. So if they decide to do tech forensics on your emails or audio or whatever, and you have not submitted the original, your credibility takes a hit, which is a big number one no-no, right? And so you want to make sure you understand where you've kept the original, where it exists. Email's a lot easier because it is in your inbox, right? And so you don't ever want to accidentally delete the original emails, right? And obviously, we always want to say about everything, about all of this stuff when it comes to evidence, talk to your lawyer about what's legal in your jurisdiction, right?
Yeah. I think it's so important to talk about that best evidence rule and to submit the original, because it's true out there. I mean, we're seeing deep fakes all the time on the internet.
Yeah.
I hear Whitney Houston singing Adele song, even though, God rest her soul, she's been gone a really long time. These things are happening. And so it's really important that we're aware of that and that we, have an audience that's informed. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
That's right. And then I think a lot of times when people go to present evidence, you have to download, a PDF, a screenshot can work. A PDF is better if you can download something as a PDF or export it as a PDF. You should Google and figure out how to do that with wherever your email, exists, because We want them to be able to see the whole thing quite cleanly. A lot of times we'll have, we'll work with moms or dads who are basically, copying, like selecting and copying all of the text and then placing it in a Word document or a Google Doc or whatever. That is not going to qualify for court because those are highly editable. You can write whatever you want in there. So it really needs to be a locked down download, a PDF or a screenshot, PDF preferred. And then you want to organize them, in our evidence grid, for example, or some sort of a process that you've got on your own. And this will also, again, you got to preserve the metadata. I'm going to repeat it again. Do not delete originals. You're printing an email, but the original can be subpoenaed. Your device that it's on is what would be subpoenaed, by the way. That's what would need to be turned in for forensic tech. And then, as we like to say, keep multiple copies as you're creating your body of evidence and all of these technical pieces, including the emails. Make sure that they are being kept on 1 or 2 EHDs, external hard drives, on the cloud. Some people swear that you should only do cloud because EHDs can be corrupted. There's lots of reasons for all of it. Look, do what's going to work for you, right? And then just make sure that you're following chain of custody to make sure that it's not tampered. And that's something that your lawyer can help you with as well. Then, of course, it's about using them in court. They have to be introduced properly. It has to be clear to us who and when they were sent and received, who all the parties are, and also why they're relevant to the case. Right? Be ready to authenticate, be ready to give up your device if they're going to do tech forensics. I don't think this is something people should live in paranoia about because it's usually around $5,000 per device. And so if an email originated from your phone, you have to hand over your phone to the tech forensic, and that's going to cost the other party $5,000 to do. Same for you. If you want to do forensic tech, and I personally think that if you're dealing with an abuser, that yes, you should be allocating funds to go these days towards tech forensics. I used to be able to say to somebody, I think there's some tech abuse going on here that you're unaware of. Let's take a look at it. And that was once in a while. Now we're sort of saying it regularly because it's very easy to download a $29 a month app and really mess around with the way something looks to the court, but they can't mess around with the metadata. And that's where the forensic tech comes in, right? And then, of course, there has to be context. A lot of times we'll get something and it'll be kind of like, see what happened here. There has to be background information. And also, what we tell our clients to do is when you've printed out that PDF, you now need to go back and highlight what's important. And a lot of clients, we all kind of, well, the whole thing, and there's all this highlighting, but then you may as well have not highlighted in the first place, right? And so I think what's very, very important is that clients choose the 1 or 2 statements that are going to pop and trust that by way of those 1 or 2 statements popping, they're going to want to read the rest of it anyway. Whereas if you just send an email without anything really, without any key statements highlighted or highlight, then what's essentially going to happen is that they're not really going to read or gather any of it. So pick what pops. And then just be ready because they're going to object. They're going to say, this is hearsay, it's not relevant, etc. And be ready. If you've done all the things I've talked about, then you will be ready to show that it is good and it is worth using. And then just very quickly, it also comes down to what's ethical. Consider that there are privacy laws. Don't use emails that, don't copy. Sometimes, not protective moms, but sometimes we'll see the abusers will actually copy their children, usually children who are teenagers or tweens, but every once in a while, they're just copying their smaller child's address that they've set up, I guess for posterity, right? Not realizing that, they're not making anybody look bad but themselves if you go back and read them. And always, and this is, I know we've talked about this, but when you're sending emails, please, please, please make sure that you sound collaborative and respectful. Right?
When you say copy the child's email, you mean like CCing them, right? Like not actually copying.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. I do. I mean that they're basically CCing their children's various email addresses. And again, I'm beginning to see even more, that they've set up emails for toddlers, which is a wonderful idea because you set something up where you can send things that have happened during their childhood. You're like creating this historical journal for the child, but then you've got somebody who comes in and starts copying on contentious emails between mom and dad during a custody battle, and that's simply not okay.
And there are situations, I saw, the situation occur sometimes where an actual parent coordinator will include, if the child is older, the parent coordinator will include the child in an OFW, and they are able to be part of decisions and correspondence to show, cooperation and so forth. So I think it's important to understand that there is a line, right? There's cooperative communication that is inclusive of the child for the child's well-being. And then separate of that, there's, correspondence that you have between you and your ex, a protective mom, or the narcissistic co-parent, where it doesn't include any of the drama, right, that may come about some of the cooperative conversation. So I just want to make that clear as well.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that a professional like a parenting coordinator shouldn't or probably won't be doing it until after they've had their initial meeting with the child.
Mhm.
Because not all parenting coordinators
Not all
necessary to talk to the children, but it is indeed part of, it does fall under a PC's purview to be able to talk to the children at any age, should they decide that it's warranted. Right. Or if it's part of their practice and part of just their philosophies towards, knowing the child, or even, as you're saying, including the child and their voice, and to help make some of those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So really when we're looking at emails, some of the best stuff we're going to capture is anything that's talking about the parenting schedule or any negotiations around any topics, right? Any agreements or decisions that are made. Obviously, it's better to have things signed, but if something was agreed upon over email and the other person is reneging or blowing right through it, it's great to have evidence of that. Anything, all the financial stuff, definitely keep close attention to that. Definitely showing communication issues or non-collaboration, just a lack of cooperation from the other parent. Those are valuable in court for the most part. And then, of course, any sort of abusive or inappropriate behavior, threatening, harassing, that kind of stuff is really important to be there. And that's, for my part, and there's so many nuances and so much more, and it depends on each client that we're working with. But in general, this is the lens with which the court is coming in, with which we're coming in when we're working with protective parents.
Yeah. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is through an internal family systems lens on how we can work with our system when we're in this process of either writing emails or responding to emails and so forth. So before sending or analyzing any of the emails, or even just sort of when you see that subject line come through, there's oftentimes, a moment that of sometimes panic, of sometimes queasiness, a feeling of nausea, just noticing which parts are active before sending or before receiving and reading an email. When typically we go to respond to emails, we've seen protective parents, they are upset. It's an upsetting situation. And so to really take some time and check in with any parts that want to write like from a defensive stance that sounds argumentative, because that can, that emotion that can kind of kick in and be blended. Granted, it's valid. When it comes to written material, you can't hear tone. You can't, that stuff just, so it can lend to miscommunication. And we don't want that. What we want to try to do is prevent miscommunication and mitigate miscommunication as much as possible. So it's really
bad
good
evidence too against
it's just really good to check in. And it's very possible that there might be vulnerable parts in the system that we call exiles that are feeling hurt by the tone of the email that was received. And so this protector one comes in and wants to write defensively back. I just encourage, everyone out there just to take a moment and pause and engage with these parts. The one that's hurt by what was just read and the one that wants to come in and defend, just to really ensure that the response that is sent, the one that's actually sent, you can write and then delete, right? The one that's actually sent reflects self-led clarity and composure, because it really is about the well-being of your child. Yeah. And that's what the goal is. And when I talk about approaching email documentation with self-energy, email is used as a tool for communication. It's not supposed to be used as a weapon. And oftentimes we see the abusive parents using communication as a weapon.
Absolutely.
And so to have self-energy, that means that you're accessing calm, you're accessing clarity, you're accessing compassion for yourself. It really ensures your written words remain factual, respectful, focused on the well-being of everybody that's involved. And this approach also avoids escalating conflict, which is what they're trying to do. Oftentimes the narcissist, the abusive parent will try to bait you to escalate the conflict, to discredit you. So instead of that happening, you can maintain, right? And then also maintain the credibility that you have as a protective parent. And lastly, just, support those parts that are triggered when reviewing emails. So reading emails from an abusive parent or an opposing party can, like I said, create reactivity. Just really take time, offer reassurance. And the question that I, encourage our clients to ask the most to these parts, especially the ones that are hurt and the ones that want to come in and defend, what do you need from me right now? What do you need from me to be able to send a calm, composed court email, right? Like an email where the court is going to see me as a cooperative parent because that's what I am. What do you need from me right now? And just taking a moment, you'd be really surprised at the answers that you hear back. And can you then give those things to the parts of you that are so activated? So this practice really allows protective parents to approach email evidence from a calm, grounded mindset, which is where we want them.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that is all for this week's episode of Courageous Custody. But before we go, thank you so much for joining us, even as I know everyone is celebrating with all of the end of year celebrations, whether you are watching us live as you get a little time away, even though we are around loved ones, or whether you're watching us on replay. We're so grateful to have helped in any way that we may have. We have some great takeaways for this week. When it comes to emails, ensure that you are using emails that are admissible, that are relevant. Make sure that you're gathering your emails in the right way and learn how to use them in court. And remember to keep ethical considerations in mind.
Absolutely. Identify parts that become activated. Really approach email with a space of self-energy and support when there is a feeling and triggering of activation. So, next week we want you to join us again at 7 p.m. here. Like or follow so that we can get notifications, or so that you can get notifications and not miss anything, because what we're talking about might just catch you when you need it.
So leave your own comments below. And wherever you're listening, remember, you are not alone. Until next week, which is next year.
Till next year.
2025. Stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for what matters most. Bye-bye,
everybody.
Bye, everybody.